Hi, boys and girls. It's time for another edition of Snack Time with a dollop of Read Aloud. Hi, welcome back. Today we're starting our brand new book, and our brand new book is called Medusa Jones by Ross Collins. Thank you again to Scholastic Publishing for allowing me to be able to share this book with you. Here is the book. Looking at Medusa, you can see that she's a little bit unusual. Take a little closer. That's right. She has snakes for hair. Yikes. Now, I'm betting that she's had more than one bad hair day. But you need to know that, yes, Medusa Jones has a similar name to the regular Medusa you might have heard of in Greek mythology. However, this Medusa is actually that Medusa's granddaughter. Now, Medusa, in case you don't know, Medusa is what they call a Gorgon. And a Gorgon is a lady is a creature really, that is part woman, part snake, and she has snakes for hair. And if you happen to be unlucky enough to look Medusa in the eyes, you'll turn to stone. Now, that being said, our character, Medusa Jones, has snakes for hair. She doesn't have a snake body. She has regular feet. And she has turned people to stone. So let's find out what this story is about. Just so you know, Medusa is about 10 years old, and she is currently in school. So you're going to find some of the regular school story kind of things going on, but it has a little bit of a Greek mythology twist. So you'll see Medusa. You'll also see some other animals or characters like a minotaur, which is half bull, half man, which in this case is a boy. You'll also see a three-headed dog. And if you've ever seen Harry Potter and Fluffy, the dog that's guarding the trapdoor that belonged to Hagrid, that three-headed dog is known as a Cerberus. And a Cerberus is also in this book. There's some other Greek mythological creatures and characters. So when they come up, we'll stop and we'll discuss them. So it's like a twofer. We love twofers. It's an enjoyable read as well as a mythology lesson all in one. Whoop, whoop. Here we go. Chapter 1. All right. A long time ago in ancient Greece lived a little girl named Medusa Jones. Medusa was a Gorgon. But apart from that, everything was pretty normal. Chapter 1. Please, can I turn them into stone? Medusa begged. It is not a polite thing to do, dear, said Medusa's mom. Well, they're not polite, Medusa argued. They're mean about my hair again today. Sticks and stones, Medusa, said Medusa's mom. You can't go around turning everyone who's mean to you and teases you about your hair into stone. Grandmom did. Gran is insane and lives in a cave. Your father and I did not raise you like that. Anyway, that's not the point, Medusa. You have to work out other ways of dealing with people who get on your nerves. Turning people to stone cannot be your go-to resolution. Medusa sighed and wandered through the living room where her dad was hiding behind his newspaper. So here is our first look at Medusa Jones in action. She's following her mom, who also is a Gorgon. She could see a few of his head snakes curling over the top of the page, trying to read the sports section. Medusa walked over to his side. Dad, she began. No, he said. But you didn't even hear what I was going to say, said Medusa, and her dad lowered one corner of the paper. Yes, I do, Med, he said. Can you turn the champions into stone? No, your mother's right. Don't ask again. But they're so mean to me. I know they are, honey. But you have to rise above it, said her dad. Some of his head snakes decided to stick their tongue out at Medusa. The funny thing about Medusa's head snakes and her family members' head snakes is that the snakes seem to have a personality all of their own. The paper snapped back up. Rise above it. That's what Dad always says. Medusa went out into the garden and sat on the bench, half of which was still getting a little bit of sunshine. Her head snakes pulled and curled so that they could get a little bit of the sunlight. They were fighting for the warmest spot on the bench. And there's her dad reading the newspaper. Kind of funny. The garden was filled with statues of postmen and salespeople. Each one had a look of horror on its face. Some were slightly turned as if they started to run. The Jones family had amassed all of these ornaments over the first few years of Medusa's life, while Gran had still been living with them. Eventually, they had to pick up their own mail from the post office in town, as no one would deliver it to their house because it was a little too dangerous. One by one, Medusa's dad had dragged the petrified postman through the garden, and eventually they stopped being a hidden shame and had become a lovely decorative feature. Ivy curled up legs and arms, blue and white flowers spouted from mail sacks and screaming mouths, and small birds made their nests in the postman's peaked caps. It was really quite pretty. Look, here are the poor postmen and salesmen that came to Medusa's house to sell things. Look at this guy. And there's Medusa just sitting in her garden. The statues cast long shadows across the garden as the sun got lower in the sky, and when it became too cold to sit out anymore, Medusa went to her room. Medusa sat on her bed and stared back at the book she had been reading for the past 2 years. What? Reading, apparently, wasn't her forte, which means it wasn't her strength. She was easily distracted by anything, and her head snakes had a habit of turning the pages back and forth if they had missed something. Very soon, distraction arrived in the form of a cold, wet sensation on her left knee, then one on her right knee, and then one on her foot. She looked down and found her puppy, Cerberus, looking up at her 3 times. Cerberus, you see, has 3 heads, which was at once good and bad. It meant that his sense of smell was second to none. One dog's nose is excellent, but 3 can smell a sausage in the next town. Likewise, he benefited from triple hearing, although this tended to be selective, and his 3 gaping jaws never missed when you threw him balls. However, the balls that Medusa used to play with, they never lasted very long. Best of all, he would lick you, or kiss you, as Medusa called it, 3 times as much, which was nice if you liked that sort of thing. On the downside, each head had its own appetite, which made feeding him a nightmare, and walking past a child with a cookie could be extremely dangerous. 3 heads meant 3 times the amount of drool as well. Medusa's first job when she got home from school was to mop up the dog's drool from the school day. Ugh. 3 heads also had 3 barks. So just when Medusa's parents had finally persuaded the post office that their employees were safe and no one would get turned to stone and added to their garden collection, Cerberus arrived. And it was back to collecting the mail from the post office. Medusa didn't care. She looked down at his little waggy tail and his 6 big eyes, 5 brown ones, and 1 blue eye. Who couldn't love 3 faces like that? Cerberus jumped up on the bed and kissed Medusa until she could smell only dog spit, and her head snakes were exhausted from nipping at him. "We'll show them, eh, Cerb?" said Medusa, ruffling his ears. "We'll show them." Look how cute he is. He's a messy, drooly puppy, but he's cute. See Medusa's head snakes all snipping and nipping at the dog? Isn't that funny? So now, before we, our next read will be chapter 2. But before we go any further, I wanted to talk to you about what we're going to discuss for the next couple of lessons. So, you know, normally how Mrs. Willis would give you a end of the read aloud prompt. Well, I am going to give you one, but it's more like think and post, and then we'll add and we'll have one big kind of poster together. So what Mrs. Willis has here is what we're going to be working on. And if you notice, look, there are her initials, Medusa Jones. There's one of her little head snakes. And what we're going to do is we're going to kind of come up with some character traits. Remember, character traits are when you're describing the person, not the feelings. So you're going to describe the person. And I was thinking, based on what we've read so far, I'm going to ask you the question, what kind of person do you think Medusa is? And in the comment section below, that's what I want you to answer. What kind of person is Medusa Jones? And I want you to tell me that. And then we'll add that to our web, because what we're going to do is we're going to make a character web together. Okay? And that character web will be used for something later on. So don't worry. It's not going anywhere. But it's just like what we did before when we were reading. Okay? So the question is, for the day, or for today's reading, what kind of person is Medusa Jones? Mrs. Willis is also going to attach something that we already have in our Reading Rainbow notebook. If you don't have your Reading Rainbow notebook, you can look at the attachment that I'm going to put on underneath this link. It's going to be your character chart poster that we have in your notebook. And it's going to all different kinds of ways to describe the character. So that's what you're going to use if you need to help you come up with a characterization of Medusa Jones. So again, the question is, and I will leave you today, after day 1 of Medusa Jones, is what kind of person is Medusa Jones? Tune in tomorrow and we'll find out what happens in chapter 2. Bye guys. I hope you enjoyed today's snack time with a dollop of Read Aloud. And I can't wait to read your posts, and I'll see you tomorrow. See ya.